Well, good morning everybody and welcome to this year's National Reconciliation Week breakfast hosted by Reconciliation South Australia. My name is Luke Carroll and can I just say how blown away I am about this room. I didn't know what to expect, but walking through here, it has actually blown me out of the park. I was saying to some of the Reconciliation South Australia staff how amazing this room is, but you mob out there make this room. So yes, thank you for turning up. I know it's an early morning. I'm not the best in the mornings, but I'm here and I'm glad I'm here. So it's an amazing event already. And I'm looking forward to the next 2 hours or so. Please put your hands together and congratulate. Thank you for Isaac for that beautiful Yidaki performance there. Thanks, brother man. And before you ask, no, I didn't bring Jemima or Big Ted or Humpty Dumpty with me this morning. They are busy back in Sydney filming, so maybe next year I might be able to bring them. I know Humpty Dumpty's a bit clumsy, so I've got to watch him on the flights over here. Now, we have an amazing and exciting program for you all today, and we look forward for you to enjoying this event with us this morning. Now, before I go any further, I would like to follow appropriate protocol and pay respect to the First Nations people of the country that we meet on and invite Miss Taylor Power-Smith up here to start the formal commencement of this morning's event with a welcome to country. Please make her welcome.
Nankana miena kaunualia napadla alia yungan dalia yaknan dalia kuma. Nanari Taylor tipu pa yala kana pani ngai chutai katena perko wangandi. Ngadlu gana yartanga imbaneni ngalulu gana. I'm really nervous. Let me start that again, eh? Thank you. Nankana miena kaunualia napadla alia yungan dalia yaknan talia kuma. Nanari Taylor tipu power yala kanapani ngai chutai katena perko wangandi. Ngadlu gana yartanga imbaneni matawichanga ngai chai kamami ngai chai kuma. Namani. That's it. For those of you who don't know, Namani means, are you all good? And if you're good, you say Mania. So Namani? Beautiful. My name is Taylor Tipple Power. Tipple in Ghana means the spark. And I was given that name after my mother, Katrina Galabina Power. And Galabina means the lover of fire. Today, we are meeting on sacred Ghana land. And I pay my respects to all the Ghana that were and all the Ghana that are. I pay my respects to all of my elders, Earthside and beyond, to all First Nations people and to all of you gathered here today. My heart is with the victims of the stolen generations, the mothers, fathers, nanas, papas, brothers, sisters, aunties and uncles that had their children brutally ripped from their arms and their worlds tipped upside down. My heart is with the children that were stolen, that were forced to live without their families and grow up without them and be subject to unimaginable suffering. Sorry will never, ever be enough. In this very moment right now, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children make up 37.3% of children in care and 51.8% of the population in the kids' jail out at Cavan. Aboriginal people have been nurturing and mothering for 60,000 years strong. Make no mistake, we love our babies fiercely, and there is nobody more qualified to raise them than us. We do not need you to build new systems. We need your help to dismantle the racist, unjust, and oppressive systems that we have today. The same systems. Thank you. The same systems that were built on genocide, murder, and theft. How could we, as Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, ever benefit from that? In the spirit of this year's theme, I'd like to honour and acknowledge my mum, Katrina Galabina Power. Like many people here today, Mum was born under the Flora and Fauna Act. She was 2 years old before she was considered a human being in her own country. And one of the many, many things, invaluable lessons my mum has taught me is the importance of staying true to yourself, for standing up for what you believe in, even when that means standing up alone. And to me, that is the epitome of bravery. So today I thank my mum, and I'd also like to thank my nana Emma Ridgway, Auntie Alice Rigney, Uncle Steve Goldsmith, and Rob Amory for giving me the tools that I need to be able to take up space and speak my truths too. Because of them, I stand here today, tall, proud, strong, and unapologetic Kaurna woman. And I'd also like to thank all the elders here today and any other influential people that have been brave and made change and paved the way for the generations, for the future generations, and made sure that there was enough space around the tables and campfires for all of us. And to all of the young people here in attendance, coming from a junior, I want to let you know and ask for you mob to not ever allow anybody to make you feel less than. Don't let anybody make you feel as if your voice does not deserve to be heard because of your age or your gender, because your voice matters, you matter, and you are equally as important in these stories as anybody else. This is not, to acknowledge history is not about living in the past, it's about learning from it. And although I stand here hopeful, I know, we all know that we've got a long way to go. And each and every single one of us here shares a moral obligation and a collective responsibility to co-create a bigger, brighter, and better future for every single human being occupying these lands. This is not the work for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. This is humanitarian work, and together we can and absolutely will make a difference. We need reconciliation. Change starts with us. We need truth for healing, and we need to work together. We cannot grow. Go on, I deserve it. Nah. Gotta own the glory, eh? Now I forgot what I was going to say. That's bad. Where was I up to? No, we can't grow in our comfort zone. So with that being said, we cannot learn to drive in a parked car. It's 2022. It's time to put it into drive and drive like it's this land stolen. As a way to honour Kaurna language, I like to sing a little song. I use that term very loosely. Of the many things that I am, a good singer is not one of them. So I do sincerely apologise for your ears, especially first thing in the morning. I'm sure it's going to be up there at the top of the list with one of your most unenjoyable experiences. But it's important for me, it's important to me, and it's important for all of us to sing as one. And it's the Nina Mani song, and I'm sure probably most of you, if not all of you, have heard this before. So if you're willing and able, I'm actually going to ask that you stand up and join me in singing the Nina Mani song. I'm going to start it, and you repeat it after me, but I'm going to take a little step back because I mean it when I say I'm not a good singer. All right, ready? Nina Mani, Mani ai, Wanti Nina, Wadliana, Nina Mani, Mani ai, Wanti Nina, Wadliana. Achalya, thank you. This is what I call a standing ovation, by the way. Mani na pudni gana yartana padni pani mapuki mukabando. In my mother's tongue, I warmly and proudly welcome you to Ghana country, and I ask that as you travel these plains, you remember the people that walked here before you. The spirit still lives amongst the steel, the concrete, the roads, and the lawns. Ngai Chalia, thank you.
Well, the nerves certainly left pretty quickly there, sister. Basking in that spotlight. What a beautiful welcome to the country and beautiful words. Please put your hands together one more time for Taylor. And I also want to acknowledge that yesterday was Sorry Day, and if there are any members of the Stolen Generations here, we acknowledge you, we see you, and we love you. I, being a very, very, very proud First Nations man from the Wiradjuri Nation in southwest New South Wales, also want to pay my respect to the Kaurna people and for being on your beautiful country. I've had a great affinity with this area over the years through my acting career. I've filmed a few TV shows here, I've done a lot of theatre here, and I've filmed a couple of films here as well. So it's always great to come back on Kaurna country and be a part of the community. This morning's breakfast is an opportunity for all of us to come together, to share our passion and commitment to the reconciliation movement and play a part in a more and fair community. Now, I hear that every year this breakfast happens, it's a full house, and again, despite the early hours and the busyness of our lives, you have come to this event. And if this was what reconciliation looks like, South Australia, you're in the lead across the country. I tell you what, I've never seen anything like this ever during my Reconciliation Week experiences. It's quite amazing. I'm still blown away. This cause and this reconciliation movement we have here in South Australia, that you might have here in South Australia, must mean something to you all to be here. Now, what an exciting thing to see here in South Australia, and what opportunities lie ahead, especially with a national focus now on reconciliation and the Uluru Statement from the Heart as spoken about by our new PM, Albanese, Anthony Albanese. Yes, my vote counted. Before moving into the program, it's important to provide some acknowledgement of dignitaries in the room this morning. Her Excellency, the Honourable Francis Adamson, Governor of South Australia, and Mr Rod Bunton. The Honourable Peter Malinauskas, Premier of South Australia. The Honourable Kyan Ma, MLC, Minister for Aboriginal Affairs, the Attorney General and Minister for Industrial Relationships and Public Sector. The Honourable Katrine Hilliard, MP, Minister for Child Protection, Minister for Women and the Prevention of Domestic and Family Violence, and Minister for Recreation, Sport and Racing. The Honourable Nick Champion, Minister for Trade and Investment, Minister for Housing and Urban Development, and Minister for Planning, and Mr David Spears, MP, the Leader of the Opposition and Liberal Member for Black. Members of the Legislative Council, the Honourable Tung No, MLC, the Honourable Stephen Wade, MLC, the Honourable Tammy Frank, MLC, members of the House of Assembly, Mr Josh Teague, MP, Shadow Minister, Aboriginal Affairs and Liberal Minister for Hyson, Ms Jane Stinson, MP, Labor Member for Badco, Ms Olivia Savas, MP, Labor Member for Newland, Ms Catherine Hutchinson, MP, Labor Member for Waite, Ms Nadia Clancy, MP, Labor Member for Elder, Ms Rhiannon Pearce, MP, Labor Member for King. We also have with us today the Lord Mayor, Sandy Verschall, the Commissioner of Police, Mr Grant Stevens, Commissioner for Aboriginal Children and Young People, April Laurie, Commissioner for Aboriginal Engagement, Professor Roger Thomas, Reconciliation South Australia Patron, the Honourable Chris Sumner, AO, Reconciliation South Australia Co-Chairs, Professor Peter Buckskin and Commissioner Helen Connolly and CEO Shona Reid. Reconciliation South Australia Board Members and many leaders and friends in the room, we also acknowledge you all today. Please put your hands together for all of our dignitaries here today. And thank you for joining us throughout your busy schedules as well. Now, Reconciliation South Australia is a small, not-for-profit organisation that punches well above its weight by bringing people together, like this breakfast this morning, having hard conversations about the state of race relations here in South Australia, advocating for greater equality for First Nation peoples in the state, reminding us all about the historical relationships between First Nations people and the wider community at settlement and even today. Advocating relentlessly for First Nations people and their rights in everyday services and at a federal and state level with the Uluru Statement from the Heart. In doing this, Reconciliation South Australia must be brave and ask South Australians to be brave as well. To be brave in sitting in the uncomfortable and asking questions, and organisations, communities and citizens to show up and speak up. Much like the NAIDOC theme for 2022, eh? Get up, stand up. Now, you are here this morning. You fought hard for your tickets for this event. I believe it sold out within 22 hours. I put a post up on social media overnight, and there were people trying to scalp tickets on my comment section. Can you believe it? Over 1,400 tickets sold out within 22 hours. I'm still blown away by it. So it is going to be a wonderful morning ahead. To start us off, I would like to invite the co-chairs of Reconciliation South Australia, Professor Peter Buckskin and Commissioner Helen Connolly, to the stage to introduce today's theme and why we're gathering at an early morning. Please make them welcome.
Thanks very much, Luke, and wow, you do look pretty deadly out there, I've got to say. After nearly 18 years being involved in this organisation, it's so good to see our strength growing every year with the participation of our fellow South Australians in the business. It's wonderful to be here on Kaurna land, and I particularly want to thank Taylor for her wonderful welcome to country and sharing her history with us. And she's absolutely right about the issues that she identified in her welcome to us all. It just shows the journey that we still have to go to travel to achieve true reconciliation in this nation. And Luke is right in terms of the work that we've done. As I said, I've been here for 18 years in this wonderful organisation and privileged to work with our fellow South Australians in the journey towards reconciliation. And we are a very small organisation. And we do and we have been brave all the way through those years as we continually challenged ourselves and our fellow South Australians to come on board with our journey. We do ask organisations, you people as individuals, the departments to be brave and courageous, to make the changes that are necessary to ensure that we can collectively walk together on this journey. It's really important to understand that we're all in this together, and so we need to walk not in front or behind but beside each other. The theme is a challenge to all Australians this year. Be brave and tackle the unfinished business of reconciliation so we can make change for the benefit of us all. Last year we encouraged all Australians to take action for every day and to be a braver society. This year we're asking to make change and have actions that begin with brave actions in your daily lives, where you live, work and socialise. Pleased to now share the podium with my co-chair, Helen.
Thanks, Peter. Good morning, everybody. Thank you. I've got an easy gig this year. For those of you who've been coming for a little while, we've decided to go for a professional MC. So it lets me off the hook a little bit. But we did want to say a few words just about the organisation. So Peter and I are doing this kind of Academy Award type style thing, we think, where we're going to share a little bit. I'm going to say a few words. He's going to come back. Bit odd, but bear with us. So my job is to say thank yous. So we have, as an organisation ourselves, taken the theme of bravery to our heart. And we've been pretty brave, we think, in pushing some new boundaries and bringing on some new reconciliation allies. So we have sought out new sponsors this year, and we've asked them to publicly commit to reconciliation and show it through financial sponsorship, particularly of this event. So I am going to now thank our sponsors. Our principal sponsor for the event this year is the South Australian Police, who are... So thank you, SAPOL. It's your first year sponsoring the event, hopefully not the last. And we thank you and heed your call for, you heeded our call for bravery in the commitment to reconciliation. We also like to thank our major sponsors. These have been with us for a little while, and they include Wellbeing SA, Lutheran Care and Baptist Care, and we thank you. And we also welcome on this year as a major sponsor, The Advertiser. I'd like to also acknowledge minor sponsors, University of South Australia, Breast Screen SA, Junction Australia and the RAA, and our supporters for this event, Lend-Lease, the Adelaide Football Club, GPX, Intract and WorkSkill. And I think in the spirit of generosity and humanity, we would like to thank Anglicare SA, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Telstra and Green Adelaide for their purchasing of tables to enable community members to be able to attend this event. Thank you to all our sponsors.
We think the work of reconciliation has no time period and is something we can do continuously and throughout the entire year and in generations to come. But the existence of a National Reconciliation Week does provide an opportunity for a dedicated focus, a booster shot, if you like. A time for all Australians to learn about their shared history, cultures and achievements, and to explore each of us and how each of us can contribute to achieving reconciliation in our own worlds, in our areas of work and in our own homes. The dates for Reconciliation Week remain the same each year. They remain this way for a special reason. The 27th of May, which is the marker for the successful 67 referendum, until the 3rd of June, when the High Court agreed decision about the Mabo decision was made, which, by the way, this year is the 30th year of the Mabo decision. And I think we can all remember when that was. I was working and living in Canberra at the time and had the privilege of being in the Parliament when that decision was taken in the Senate. Which is, by the way, as I said, it's 30 years, 30th anniversary. We must continue to learn about these dates, the stories that surround them, and the messages and the learnings we must take from them. We will do our best as an organisation to support this learning, but we ask all of you to take your own lead and your responsibility for the ongoing learning. I have been an educator and a leader in education for many years. Actually, it's around about 40 these days. And it is essential that we never stop that learning, and that when we move into that truth-telling, we continue to educate our young people to understand that why we want to dedicate ourselves to achieving the Uluru Statement. We have taken some bold steps at a little organisation. 20 years ago, yes, as I said, it's our 20th birthday this year, if you haven't heard. And we started a single person entity. Trisha Garnett was our executive officer, and co-chairs Auntie Shirley Peasley and Dennis Ralph on the 23rd of May 2002. We have seen some amazing leaders guide this little organisation, from the late Justice Ted Mulligan, who I took over from as the chairman way back then, and what a mentor he was, and reminded me often that the reconciliation has got to start really with white fellas. He kept on saying, Peter, it's our business, we've got to do the heavy lifting. And to see him do that, working with us and educating us about how to negotiate, was just an absolute privilege. To Christine Childs, who's with us today, and Jan Chorley, I want to thank them from my heart for the work that they did with me as co-chairs. And the Honourable Robin Layton QC, who sends her apologies today. But seeing her and Justice Ted Mulligan negotiate constitutional reform here in South Australia that was being led by the then Premier Weatherall, was just an amazing privilege that you're sitting in the room with two amazing intellectual legal minds debating about how best we would take a set of words to the South Australian Parliament and garnish the support of all parties that sit in the lower and upper houses, chambers of our Parliament. And then to get to see that success. At our, we had a cocktail party to start these celebrations of our 20th year, and I can't go past the leadership again of people like Renee Coffey, who took over from Trish Garnett, Rosalind Cox and Mark Waters. And now you all know the wonderful Shona Reid, who's just taken us to another level. Well done, Shona. And the many board members that came on and worked with us over those years. Thank you all very much. And I know that when we have the panel this morning, we're going to share much more about that experience of working together.
Thanks. Thanks, Peter, for sharing that history with us. A lot's happened in 20 years, and to think that you've been with it for 18 of those, I think, is an enormous, enormous commitment by a single person. Thank you. Hopefully, I'm now going to do a little bit of a plug, as I do for members. So you too can spend 18 years involved in reconciliation if you try really hard, but it does start with a membership. So in the room today, we've got many people who've not been to these events, and we certainly have a raft of new civic and political leaders amongst us. So you can be members of Reconciliation. We currently have 391 members. I think we're kind of exponentially growing each year as people get behind the work that we do. It doesn't matter if you're an individual, a small business, a large corporate body, a school, a government or a local council. We welcome you all and your money to our organisation. It is more than money, of course. It is a great way for you to show your support for the principles and actions and reconciliation. And I think that it is about making a public commitment to the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. It's about us supporting publicly the Uluru Statement from the Heart and the principles of voice, agreement making and truth. We have a slideshow somewhere that you can that will show the work that we do, and I also encourage you to look at our reports, particularly our annual reports, so that I don't have to stand here all day and go through all of the things we do. But we are constantly taking the messages of reconciliation to heart. So over the next year, just to let you know, we are committed to strengthening our efforts and resolve to support First Nations co-design and long-term investments in the Closing the Gap targets for South Australia. We're going to support initiatives and campaigns that overtly address racism experienced by First Nations people, both at an individual and systemic level. We're going to contribute to the truth-telling processes, as we consider that to be absolutely the building block of the relationship between First Nation people and the wider community. And we're going to work really hard to support our governments and institutions to actively engage and be publicly accountable for their actions. And really importantly, we want to define a collective shared identity as South Australians that is truly inclusive of First Nation culture and knowledge. And so if you think that's something you'd like to be part of, hard to say no, I would have thought, then we would really love you to join with us, because I say it every year, but if we can harness the collective goodwill, actions, thoughts, and commitments of such an enormous group of people, then we're well on the way to actually doing something brave and making change for First Nations South Australians for the benefit of all South Australians. Thank you and enjoy the morning.
Please put your hands together one more time for Peter and Helen. Thank you very much. And there's a lot of history in there, and a lot of people who made history are here today. And 391 members, so I'm going to do the calculations. 1,400 plus people here. Subtract about 391 members, they should be all here this morning. I reckon we get an extra 1,000 members by the time we walk out these doors. What do you reckon, eh? It's about not just showing up, but you've got to stand up and represent all throughout the year. So becoming a member will definitely lead the way by that. You show you are really committed to the drive here by Reconciliation Australia in this state. There is also a lot of opportunity. There is also a lot of opportunity for everyone in this room and beyond to get on board by playing our own parts in the community that we truly can be proud of and be strong within. Next on the program, we have a very special guest. As we invite him to the stage, I would like to introduce the Honourable Carroll MC'd, MLC, South Australia's Minister for Aboriginal Affairs, Attorney General and Minister for Industrial Relations and Public Sector. Minister Ma is a proud Aboriginal man who served as the Aboriginal Affairs Minister in the Wetherill Labor government, guiding important reforms such as being the first state in Australia to commence treaty negotiations with Aboriginal nations and implementing a Stolen Generations repatriation scheme. Carroll is particularly passionate about ensuring that all South Australians are afforded the dignity that good, meaningful jobs provide, and that all South Australians are able to share in the opportunities and benefits that this state offers. A graduate of Adelaide University, he holds degrees in law and economics and practiced as a lawyer with the Crown Solicitor's Office before working in politics. Please welcome Minister Ma.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much, Luke, and thank you to those who welcomed us this morning. Isaac, it's been a real pleasure over the last few years to see you grow into the ambassador you've become. Thank you for that deadly Yadaki performance, brother. And to Taylor, thank you so much for your generous welcome and your advocacy. You do your family proud. And many people might have recognised the words Taylor spoke at the end of her welcome. If you're awake just before the 6 a.m. news each morning on ABC Radio, you'll hear Taylor every single day of the week. I too wish to acknowledge we're on Kaurna land. Wherever you wake up anywhere in Australia, you're waking up on Aboriginal land that has seen Aboriginal people thrive for tens of thousands of years. Reconciliation SA has played an exceptionally important role in South Australia and in the reconciliation movement more broadly. And 20 years is a very long time for Reconciliation SA. 20 years ago, Peter Buskin was a much younger man and remembered only a couple of years before that the Adelaide Crows winning in a final. That's how long ago Reconciliation SA started up. But in reflecting on what reconciliation means, I think we can sometimes underestimate just how important the movement's been in Australia. I reflect on my lifetime, some of the changes in attitudes that I've seen and the role reconciliation has played in that. I think over the last few decades, there has been a distinct change in the way non-Aboriginal Australians have felt proud of the heritage that is in this nation, the way non-Aboriginal Australians have come to understand just how remarkable the tens of thousands of years that have come before on this country means. People who've been in regional communities on farms for 5 or 6 generations feel remarkably attached to that place. It's almost unimaginable the thousands of generations that so many Aboriginal people trace on this country. And to have that shared pride, I think, has seen us come a long way. But it's what that's created, that acceptance, that understanding and that pride by non-Aboriginal Australians in terms of Aboriginal people that I think is even the more remarkable part of reconciliation. It's allowed more Aboriginal people to be proud of who they are and of their culture. And I think that's probably the greatest gift that the reconciliation movement's given. I was reflecting, I had a good friend in high school, a young Aboriginal man who would not talk about his heritage to any of his friends, would even deny being Aboriginal. He now works in an Aboriginal-controlled community organisation, Mount Gambier, helping other young Aboriginal men. And that space that reconciliation's created has helped people like that tremendously. But it's not just helped individuals, as important that is. I think the reconciliation movement and the changes in attitude that's created have allowed policymakers, have allowed governments to be brave. That changes in attitudes has allowed governments to do the right thing, to say sorry, to institute reparation schemes for stolen generations, to be brave, to allow your state and your federal government to be fully committed to implementing voice, treaty, truth. This is all part of what the reconciliation movement has allowed us as individuals and us collectively to do. And I want to thank everyone who's been involved over the last 20 years in South Australia. You have changed our state for the better. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Ma. The focus on First Nation inclusivity and engagement in the reconciliation movement here in South Australia is something that I will take away from today, most definitely, and look forward to seeing how this translates as we get into the hard work over the next few years and beyond. Now, I can see that the food is starting to come out, so that means we'll take a very short break soon, but before we do, we are truly blessed to have some special performers here with us here today, showcasing the amazing talents of our local artists and artistic expression. Tjarutja Dance Collective performers are Kerry Johnson, Cleena Sansbury, Janelle Egan and Melanie Coolmatry. Tjarutja will be dancing to Electric Fields music with a Kaurna welcome to country with voiceover by Frank Wanganeen and one of Electric Fields' most favourable songs, Law Woman. Enjoy.
Noi tampanti Tuwilla Berkiana. Noi tampanti Bemba Balyarendi. Ghana Yurtiana, Marta Chianga, Ghana Miona. Nai Wangdi, Marni Nai Budni, Ghana Yurtiana. I like to recognise the ancestors. I recognise where we hold in this event is on Ghana country. On behalf of the Ghana people, I welcome you to Ghana country. Warinthi Kamanka. Let's walk together. Nataya.
Go. She's that Lord woman. She's that Lord woman. She's that Lord woman. She's that Lord woman.
Yes, take a bow, you deadly women, take a bow. And thank you very much there to Tjarutja for your amazing work and talent. One more time, a big round of applause for a very special performance there. This event, we are featuring the artwork of Sasha Hill, who lives, yes, Sasha's table there. This event, we are featuring the work of Sasha Hill, who lives and works in South Australia. She's a proud Yamachi Noongar woman whose work is centred around cultural identity and her relationship to country. Sasha has travelled extensively across Australia and journeys to her ancestral home in WA, and have allowed her to discover important stories, song lines, and knowledge from the women in her community. Family and home is an intrinsic part of Sasha's practice, and she paints at home with her children close by. This shared creative process allows Sasha's children to observe and learn more about their own heritage, whilst hearing the stories and lineal wisdom which are an integral part of her work. As an artist, Sasha's practice is deeply rooted in her connection to country, to her culture, her family, and to the stories and knowledge which protects and preserves her culture. We will come back at about 8 a.m. to hear from some of our past and current board members and Reconciliation South Australia's current CEO. It's time to resume our program and introduce some very illustrious people here up on stage. Now, it's been 20 years of Reconciliation South Australia, so it's timely for us to do a little reflection about the travels so far. And who better to do this than some previous leaders of the organisation and the current leadership team. On stage with me now, Professor Peter Butskin, PSM Face, is an Narungga man from the Yorke Peninsula in South Australia. As an educator and professional bureaucrat for over 40 years, Professor Butskin's passion has been the pursuit of educational excellence of Aboriginal peoples. He has been involved in many national, international and state councils. Of most significance today, Professor Butskin is the current co-chair of Reconciliation South Australia and has been since 2005. Ms. Christine Charles was a previous co-chair of Reconciliation South Australia in the early years in 2004 and was pivotal in the organisation's foundation and navigating its journey in finding its feet in those early days. Christine has held a variety of positions in the private sector, in the public sector, community sector, and academia at chief executive and executive levels. Jan Chorley was also a previous co-chair of Reconciliation, starting in 2006 and ending in 2010. Jan is currently the CEO at the Australia Day Council of South Australia and has worked at a strategic level in change management in all levels of government and the educational sectors, producing new models of integrated design and delivery on the ground. Shona Reid is an Eastern Arundel woman, currently CEO of Reconciliation South Australia, and will be facilitating the panel discussion this morning. Please make them welcome.
Yes, I'm on. Good morning, everybody, and I don't usually get to go up on stage, so thanks for letting me do this, Peter and Helen. I appreciate the chance to do this. And it is a really important year for us. It's our 20th birthday, and it is just a little bit exciting, a big agenda, realising how old we really are. But also to see so many people come into one room so early is heartening. Sometimes we just don't get to see that when we're working hard behind the scenes. And I'm really honoured to be up on stage, to be honest, with some illustrious leaders in the reconciliation space from South Australia. And thank you to you all, and Christine and Jan and Peter for joining me and allowing me to just have a bit of a conversation with you both. 2002, we were born, 23rd of May, so, you know, we're kind of doing the right thing around this time. Christine, you were the first on board with the agenda, you know, in terms of the crew up here. Those early days, what was the gig going on those early days? Because it was just not many people around kind of running the organisation at that time.
Look, I've been reflecting coming into this discussion about, you know, what was it like 20 years ago and where are we now? And to be honest, because I still work in a space where this is a really important agenda, right? And on a bad day, I kind of wonder how far we've come. But then I really reflect to where we were. And, you know, there'd been the Bringing Them Home report. There'd been state parliaments and, you know, less the national parliament, but, you know, state parliaments sort of dealing with apologies. And I think that ripple effect of people actually understanding what they didn't know. And also, even if you actually had a sense of our history and the injustice and the importance of this national conversation, people had no idea what to do. And so it often struck me, I mean, at that stage I was chairing the state government public service reconciliation committee, and the complete lack of understanding of our own history, let alone actually having a view of what it was like to actually be on the receiving end of an invasion and all of the public policies and things that happened in the course of, you know, where we are now. And Reconciliation South Australia, I think, was this idea that both was driven with, you know, individuals matter and our actions matter, but we also need to both educate ourselves and put a structure around it. So I think in those days, some of the conversations, I mean, you know, this would not have happened, right? It felt... some conversations that, when I look back, were relatively gentle, felt very challenging. And I know, you know, when Human Services did the We Took the Children report, that was a traumatic process internally. It was a traumatic conversation to have. And, you know, Reconciliation Australia, South Australia provided a space to actually, because there were very, very hard things that had to be done. And so we started really small. You know, Dennis, Ralph and Shirley were, you know, very passionate about it. And, you know, it was a group of people, we had no idea what we were doing really, that kind of knew something needed to happen. So a very small group, incredibly tenuous in terms of didn't have secure funding, didn't really have a home. In fact, I think, you know, Reconciliation South Australia was a bit of a, you know, a wandering kind of group for a period of time. And so I look back and think, you know, it's amazing what happens if people who truly believe that you should make a difference get together, and then amazing things happen. And I look at where it is now and pretty blown away, really, and I kind of had a small part in that process right at the beginning.
Oh, Oh no, I think bigger than you realise, Christine, and you're incredibly influential at the time in state government. I think you were the CEO of DHS at the time, so you know obviously an important part in that. And Jan, you came on a few years late, not that long after Christine. And you often talk to me about how tough it was. You know, the start of it and the idea of Reconciliation SA kind of started conversations, but there was a time where there was really tough parts to movement making that you had to go through and navigate.
Absolutely. And can I just first acknowledge how very special it is to be here with Peter and to thank Helen and also Shona for the opportunity of just looking back, because those early years were extremely hard and broke people in the process because they were so difficult. I remember Jackie Huggins saying to me, "I just don't know how Tjarutja keeps going." And if we could, and I think looking back is really important because it helps us to sort of think about how we can manifest our future. But if we start with thinking about what happened in the lead up to the walk across the bridge, and Peter and Tjarutja and Auntie Shirley and Katrina Powell, and it's so beautiful to see you, Taylor. I walked across the bridge with your mum, and I'll never, ever forget that day, the Sydney Harbour Bridge. But, you know, we sat in the Sydney Opera House when hundreds of people stood up and turned their backs on the Prime Minister of the day because of his refusal to apologise. And then, you know, the next day, 250,000 people walked across the Sydney Harbour Bridge in an incredible act of solidarity to drive the reconciliation movement. And here in Adelaide, the week after, or the following week, I think, we had large numbers and we did the same. But I also wanted to say that just in relation to, we were very fragile at that stage as a state because all the funding that was set up to support state bodies went. So the federal government invested in the national reconciliation process, and fair enough, but the states basically dried up. But there was a minister, a Liberal minister, Dorothy Cotts, and I just want to acknowledge this because this was really important, who gave Reconciliation South Australia some money to keep going. Now, if we'd been cut off at that point, I reckon it could have taken a number of years for us to have got back on our feet. But just, a bit more about... But for several years, they were dark days because the leadership wasn't there. We were up against incredible, structural barriers, and it was leadership within this state that actually enabled us to really bring about the change and the growth. And so we started reconciliation breakfasts, we started schools, big schools engagement, and a whole lot of initiatives, and also in the corporate sector. And I noticed that Lou Owens was here. People like Lou and others really brought the corporate sector on board, they were big shifts.
Absolutely, and we've also got Mark Waters in the room, who was CEO for many, many years. Good morning, Mark. And Renee was with us earlier this week, Renee Coffey, so it was wonderful to see some of the previous CEOs and leaderships come through who did navigate some of those really, uncertain days. But I think it is right, a testament to South Australia's leadership, not just within the organisation, but, quite, more broadly. Peter, your leadership, 18 years, that's like growing a, baby to an adult.
Well, I firstly just want to thank
You're on.
these wonderful women that co-chaired with me over the years, because without your support behind me and working together, and to bring in and to make sure this was going to be us as a nation of people, it's just not an Indigenous issue or a white issue. We've got to work on this together. And I had this most amazing public service career where I was in Canberra when the Stolen Generation, the Mabo work. I was a senior executive in the Department of Education, and so we had ministers leading it and secretaries of departments allowing us to be courageous in having coffee moments and workshops in our programs, within our department, and allowed, I think I was the only senior executive of that department at the time, and then my secretary, Steve Sedgwick, saying, "You going to the march across the bridge?" When I was, halfway out the door when he was asking me. But he was really pleased to have his department represented and to have a group of Aboriginal mob that are living off country in Canberra and working together, because it was with a great sense of pride that we went. And as you know, we had ministers that wouldn't walk across that bridge. We had a Prime Minister that wouldn't do it. And so I was really impressed with the executive leadership of the public service, who were quite brave and supporting their senior staff to go to Sydney and to do that work and start a network across the nation.
Absolutely, and we do, cherish those relationships we have with our fellow reconciliation allies, and that comes from government, corporates, not-for-profits, individuals. It comes from all across the place, and I think everyone in this room could probably call themselves an ally in what we're trying to do around, building, really important relationships and trying to define where we're going as a country and as a nation, and how we'd like to, I suppose, embrace our true history, but our shared histories as we go forward. You've obviously been allies and, taken those steps forward and made a decision personally and professionally to commit yourself to this agenda. What's kept you in the game in that space? Because, it does get tricky sometimes. Allyship is never an easy gig. What's kept you on board with the reconciliation movement and wanting to, play your part in building relationships between First Nations community and the wider community here in South Australia? Chrissy?
Well, actually, I grew up in a very large, one of 12 kids, Irish Catholic family in Melbourne. So a very strong sense of social justice and, from a very early age. And then I ended up in the Northern Territory at, 17 with a young baby, so there's a whole story behind that. And really for the first time actually understood a whole different Australia. And I was taken under the wing of a very senior Kanarikan woman, Vi Stanton, who was amazing, who kind of became a surrogate mother, including to the point of when I needed it, kind of, clipping me around the ears. And there was a whole education for me in that process. So I lived in Darwin, lived in Katherine, which, if you want to know the outskirts of kind of really bad behaviour, Katherine at that stage was pretty challenging. And my husband, who was a doctor at that stage, worked for the Aboriginal Medical Service one day a week, and our house was spray painted with racist kind of comments. So by the time I came down to South Australia and ended up in the public sector, I guess at a personal level, it felt to me like this was a conversation that was not optional. That as a country, we hadn't even educated ourselves. And I felt kind of angry that I'd had a whole education that had failed to actually talk about what happened. So, for better or worse, I'm kind of sort of known as a sort of passionate person. That has actually taken me through, and there's been some really tough things, and still are. I mean, as I started off saying, these are both not easy things to change. It is confronting about behaviour. And, for Indigenous Australia, and that's the other thing, is there's not one Indigenous Australia, right? There are multiple nations, there's multiple stories. Working out bush is different than in the city. And for me, it's actually remembering that, when I need to, I can reach out to people who will be kind of honest with me, because it's easy to lose your way and, second guess yourself about whether your values are right. So I think that sense of network, which is what Reconciliation SA is such an important part of, is actually part of being able to continue to drive forward. And I've been very privileged to be in senior roles in which it wasn't my main job, but because of the jobs I had, I could actually be influential in other things. And, I think in those roles, it comes with an obligation to do something. So, kind of that's my story.
And you're right, it's about how you use your influence. We all have influence in one way or another, and how you do that is so important. Jan, I just wanted to, we don't have much longer up on stage, I'm afraid, because people got to go to work and use their influence. But, I just wanted to from where we were to where we are today, what would you say has been, something that has elevated the reconciliation movement in South Australia? I mean, obviously the work we do at Reconciliation SA, but more generally in the community, what has elevated, reconciliation here?
I think that I would like to go back to there was those dark years, but then there were amazing years where we had some really solid funding. You'd remember, Peter, under the Weatherall government, we ended up with quite a bit of money to sort of acknowledge the 40-year anniversary of the 1967 referendum. So funding made a difference. But what really makes a difference in this city and state is the relationship building. You know, as you said, Shona, and Peter's acknowledged today, we had outstanding state managers right through who the large part of what they did was relationship build across government, corporate sectors, the not-for-profit sectors, police, right across everywhere. And the board, we've had outstanding board members. When I think about the work that people like Bill Hignett and Bill Denny did particularly in acknowledging our Aboriginal veterans, our women and men, you know, there were leaders in this state who've actually dug deep and actually given visibility to the invisible, told our stories, told our national stories, been enlargers of our national story. And I think that's really made a difference. And if I can just mention one other quick thing, which was so major, but we, with Peter's leadership and the support of our board, and particularly our executive officer at the time, really drove that whole agenda towards the apology, the national apology, and even some of the language that we were really keen to see as part of that national apology. We were so galvanised, and and Peter and I sat in the Great Hall as the apology was delivered, and no one will ever forget that day. And we also facilitated, people being able to gather in Elder Park to just take that moment, that change moment in our history of this nation. And so there's some of the things that I take away.
And Peter, I'm going to let you, as the statesman of the team up here and the longest serving co-chair. We talked a little bit about the past. For you, as we think about, the next 5, 10, 15 years, what do you think we need to see for us to have known that our work matters, that our influence matters, and we are living in a more fair and equitable community where all our children have the same opportunities?
Yes. Well, I believe that we're all lifelong learners, and being an educator and being really impressed by the national reconciliation scene and attending the Reconciliation Convention, the apology, the Stolen Generation report, seeing His Excellency Sir William Dean and Lady Dean present their report to what was a really sad conference, really, because we had a Prime Minister that just wasn't going to acknowledge us and apologise. And so, but seeing the executive of government stand up, and Your Excellency, it's really good to see you here, because one of the real leadership that we've had here is leadership from Government House with many of our governors, and we've been very lucky to have people that want to come and learn and then work with us and be ambassadors for us and champion our work. So thank you. But there are other people I'd just like to acknowledge in the public sector, because you have to be brave in the public sector. And I also want to acknowledge David Rathon way back in those days, who was working with the minister we mentioned today, who allowed him also to work with the reconciliation and work with Arnie Shirley, who was at the 67 referendum campaign. And so when I came back, it was so easy to slip in here and to show some leadership by helping the legacies of others to ensure we can move to the next step. And I know that there are a lot of young people out there. It's great seeing school students here, because we're going to be handing the baton over to you. And I'm so proud of where our young people have come. I'm so proud to be part of a government and set of governments that have allowed a more culturally responsive expression of how we teach our young people and to support them. So it's that legacy to continue and pay respects even to my own grandfather, who worked pretty closely with Don Dunstan. I'm bragging now. When he used to come home to Point Pearce, Narungga Nations on Arbor Day, and visit and work with our elders through our lands and our crops. And when you see that level of respect from my grandfather, who wasn't treated that well in the community, really respect white fellas, I said, oh yeah, that's the way to go, because we've got to work with each other. And so it's that legacy that keeps me up every day, and then looking at my own children, and dare I say that young grannies, not that they're mine, but they call me Papa Pete. I want to make sure that they're going to have a stronger place in our society. And so it's been a real privilege to work in a space that we can set the agenda and respond to it.
And legacy is so important, and I'd like to thank all three of you for the legacy that you've left me as a CEO running the organisation, and the very humbling position that I've been, have the privilege of to do for South Australia, and I am truly honoured to do that. But it is built on the hard work that has been done for many years before me, and there will be many years after me, and I think that's where we go from here. Is we all got a part to play, we all have influence. It's just about knowing what that is, and then activating our own legacy, and how do we do this thing called reconciliation, and start kicking some goals for our kids and families and children out there. So I'd like to thank you for coming and being here on stage, and I'm going to hand back to the deadly Luke Carroll.
Once again, a big round of applause there for our past and present team of Reconciliation South Australia. There is a certainty of great history in movements making up on stage, and it is great to see the work from the early days of the 2000s that has provided a wonderful foundation for where we can go as we move towards addressing some of the key focuses for reconciliation into the future. Now, I'm very, very excited for the next part of the program. Yes, I'm looking at you, my sister, our next performer. You are in for a treat, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls that are here today. This young lady is a strong, proud Anangu, Torres Strait Islander woman, and has released her debut collection of songs entitled Narangu in 2020. Meaning, what happened in Pitjantjatjara? Narangu explores the stories and the strength this young lady inherited from her late grandmother, whose interludes narrate the project. Since its release, it has not only garnered critical acclaim, but received the 2020 ARIA for Best Soul R&B Release. A Queensland Music Award, a NEMA, and went on to top multiple Album of the Year lists. You are in for a treat, you mob. Inspired by the sounds of R&B, gospel and soul, and the power of spoken word poetry, this young lady is using her music to bring people together, to help educate and inspire. And I was serenaded by her this morning whilst eating my breakfast in the dressing room. It was a great way to start the morning. With a voice that showcases vulnerability and strength, often in the same breath, she sings of her people, proudly, her community and her story with the raw emotion of lived experience. She weaves together the personal and political so tightly. The listener begins to understand just how inseparable they are for a young Aboriginal woman. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it is my great honour to introduce to the stage the deadly Miiesha.
Hello. Yeah, I'm really happy to be here. I've never been to one of these, and I just haven't been to one of these, and I don't know, I feel so much strength and determination in this room, and a lot of love and dedication in this room, and it's very empowering. So, yeah. Oh. Sorry. This first song is called Drowning, and yeah, it's a part of my project Nyaringi, which means what happened in Pitjantjatjara. And yep, this is Drowning.
The way I wear my freedom when it's heavy with the opinions I've learned. Burdened by decisions, see it restricting my vision to learn. Liberty can make you distant, so just step inside the sentence I serve. Feel the beating in my prison, there's no difference but the distance between their words. Cause I'm always drowning, drowning naked. And all I could see was, is this to your faces? How does one's own tongue forsaken? Tried to swallow an ocean, no, but couldn't. The way I wear my prison when it's heavy with the opinions I've heard. I'm burdened by decisions, see it restricting my vision to turn. I'm caught in your new religion, full of hope and contradictions to serve. Feel the beating in my prison, there's no difference but the distance between their words. Cause I'm always drowning, drowning naked. And all I could see was, is this in your faces? How does one's own tongue forsaken? Tried to swallow an ocean, but couldn't. The rations that you claim to be my saving grace starve the spirit, time to keep me warm, leave me without strength to rise again. The drowning man don't check the saving hand. It's not the same one that be choking him up on the land, but still he is judged where he cannot stand. See, I'm always drowning, drowning naked. And all I could see was, is this in your faces? So I'm always drowning, drowning naked. And all I could see was, is this in your faces? How does one's own tongue forsaken? Tried to swallow an ocean, but couldn't. For those who learn how to swim, your survival is not your sin.
Thank you. That was Drowning. So, for those who don't know me, my name is Miiesha. I'm a proud Anangu woman, and I grew up in central Queensland. I was raised in Woorabinda, small Aboriginal community just outside of Rockhampton, like 2 hours inland from Rockhampton. I grew up there, and oh man, I miss it. I haven't been home in a good long time. But this next song is called Broken Tongues, and this song has 3 sections to it. And the first section to it is like, I used to be real shame. Man, I used to be so shame. I never wanted to be seen. I didn't like eating in front of people. Like, that's how shame I was. I didn't want to be seen. I didn't feel proud of myself. I didn't feel like I knew who I was. And I felt lost, you know? And then there's a second part where it's like, I'm kind of telling myself, like, oh no, but I have a voice and I want to be heard and my opinion matters and I should know who I am and I'm strong. I'm strong, like my mothers and my fathers. I should be strong, you know? Then the third section to the song is like, my ancestors telling me, I heard them, no more hiding, no more hiding. We didn't fight for you. We didn't fight for you to sit in that room, Miiesha, and wish that you were doing this and this and this and this. Go and do it. Go and do it. So there we have Broken Tongues. Don't talk too loud, don't wanna stand up in this vacant crowd. They fill your space, they don't like your sound, they don't trust your broken mouth. Swallow your history down and wash that bitter taste out. Books burn on shelves, so why be acting all proud? Rewriting yourself into something else. Tell them where you come from and the odds that you have overcome. To stand among them with the warrior within that blood. It ain't no broken song, but a harmony of two tongues. Listen closely now, know that this is how the God sound. None of the combo, and gun in bar. And then I thought we hit wide on the mark. And none of the combo, and gun in bar. And then I thought we hit wide on the mark. And none of the combo, and gun in bar. And then I thought we hit wide on the mark. And none of the combo, and gun in bar. And then I thought we hit wide on the mark. Your skin turning into something else right behind the eyes. They've been fearing the power within that the history tried to hide. Rising, feeling that all you need is the space to grow in. Thinking that things only get better when you give up the shame and you own the skin. From in the years that you have overcome, to stand among them with the warrior within that blood. It ain't no broken song, but a harmony of two tongues. And listen closely now, know that this is how the God sound. None of the combo, gun in love, young after you, what in none of the combo, gun in love, young after Thank you. This next song is called Damaged. It's a part of my 2 EP release, Smoke and Mirrors, that I'll be releasing June the 3rd. The song is about intergenerational trauma. You know, I have always been in this roller coaster with my mum. Just never could hit it off with her. Could just never be peaceful with her, you know. And it's not like I didn't want to love her. I wanted to love her, man. That's my best friend, and I wanted to love her and give her that love that she deserved, that she's always wanted. And my mind gets clouded with anger, and it gets clouded all the time. All the time. It feels like, yeah, I'm making progress. But that is the thing, though. You have to keep going, because it's like a chain and you have to break it, you know. I know I'll get the day to love my mum unconditionally the way that I should. But yeah, the song is called Damaged. I know you say, ooh, you can hold me down, but I feel my name
never really fit your mouth. The way that it falls down to the ground where it feels like my fear gonna fight your fear by knowing every move. I'm drowned in the sounds that don't sound right, watering down a bloodline, still trying to prove there's always more, but I can never have it. Tell me that I'm damaged. If my wounds can't fit your truth, then I'm leaving it abandoned. The way that you demand it, turn me to a savage. Nothing left for me to do when I cannot break your habits. Here there ain't no take backs on the things we said. Wish that we could fake that, but it is what it is. I walk away, ooh, so you can do what you gotta do. Make your mistakes, just don't let your mistakes make you. There's nothing left to lose. You're down on the ground before you realize no one's gonna fight your fight like the way that I used to. And drown in the sounds of a heart crying, trying to bleed out a bloodline, still trying to prove there's always more, but I can never have it. Tell me that I'm damaged. If my wounds can't fit your truth, then I'm leaving it abandoned. The way that you demanded it, tell me to a savage. Nothing left for me to do when I cannot break your habits. Here there ain't no take backs on the things we said. Wish that we could fake that, but it is what it is. I know you say, ooh, you don't know me now, but all you did to my old self was drag me down.
Thank you. Also, this is Sarah, my beautiful guitarist. Yeah. Oh yeah, sorry. One more song. I wrote this song while I was up in the Blue Mountains in New South Wales. It was just me and Sarah. We was sitting around a fire, and we were like out on this farm for 2 days, and it was just like this little, this like, what do you call it? Like this little shack kind of thing. It was a cabin. It was a cabin. Sorry. Yeah, we were in this cabin for like 2 days, and it was just us two. But yeah, I was really inspired by the quietness, and I had like this, I don't know, I just had this feeling, and I wanted to write a song out there, you know. This song was called Breathe, and I wrote this song about, so my grandmother reared me up, and she passed away 3 years ago now. And there was something so important about the last breath that she took, because it was like she was giving me something, you know? It was like she was giving me that breath. Because I didn't know who I was I didn't not know who I was after my grandmother had passed. Because it's kind of like, oh, what do I do now? What do I do now? Who am I, you know? But it was like her giving me that breath and saying, it's okay. You're going to make it through. You're going to find yourself because you're strong like your mothers. And even though me and my mother don't get along, and it's mainly just women in my family, we are strong women, and I have always looked up to them, you know. So it's kind of like, you're strong like your mothers and your brothers. Oh, you carry your brothers, sorry, and you're strong like your fathers. And when I say carry your brothers, I mean like, you know, you help your brothers, you help your family, you help those around you, and you care and you love for them. And yeah, this song was called Breathe.
Take this breath of mine. My time is fading. No more sorries, no more self-doubt. Don't cry, you'll find yourself. There's no words that could explain it, the pain that you're hiding. Let it out. You're as brave as your mother. You're as strong as your father. Yeah, yeah. You carry your burden. You're as strong as your mother. Take this breath of mine. My time has faded. No more sorries, no more self-doubt. Don't cry, you'll find yourself. There's no words that could explain it, the pain that you're hiding. Let it out. You're as brave as your mother. You're as strong as your father. Yeah, yeah. You carry your brother. You're as brave as your mother. I see it coming. I see it coming. Better days are coming. Yeah, yeah. You're as brave as your mother. You're as strong as your father. Yeah, yeah. You carry your brother. You're as strong as your mother. You're as brave as your mother. Yeah. You're as strong as your father. Yeah. You carry your brothers. You're as strong as your mother.
Thank you so much. And I just want to thank everybody here for being so lovely and so beautiful. And keep doing what you're doing. We're making steps and we're going to get there. So thank you so much for having us.
Take a bow. I told you in for a special treat, didn't I? Hey, what a way to finish our morning. One more time, big round of applause for Miiesha. And also accompanying her, Sarah Coppin on guitar. Wow, what a morning and what a way to come together at the start of National Reconciliation Week for 2022. Thank you sincerely to all involved. From those of you at the table, thank you for showing up. But remember, now it's time to stand up. If you do want to become a member, jump online, dip deep into your pockets, become a member. Help the Reconciliation South Australia team advance into the future. These fantastic events they're putting on. Also, to the convention staff, thank you very much. It's been a fantastic venue. We thank you sincerely. All of those performers on stage, thank you also very much as well. And also to our panellists for your insights and perspectives. We take much away from today and are all hopefully energised to put some of this into action. A big special shout out to the Reconciliation South Australia staff. CEO Shona Reid. Event Coordinator Jessie Tilbrook. Staff members Belinda Horsworth, Natalie Gentle, Travis Akbar, Sean Childs, Emily Soda, who's unfortunately leaving us today for the team, Melissa Steele and Mandy Tapfield. A big round of applause for all of our staff. The wonderful volunteers, thank you. We cannot do this without you, so thank you very much. Sponsors of today, thank you for your support in getting behind this event and the movement as well, for making a public commitment through your sponsorship and support of this event. Going away, I don't want to jump on the plane and go back to Sydney. I want to stay here with you, mob, because you're leading the way. Like I said, if this is the face of reconciliation in this state, you, mob, are leading the country. So thank you very much. It's great to be on Kaurna country as always. Like I said, I'm a proud First Nations man from the Wiradjuri Nation. Thank you very much for Reconciliation South Australia for the invitation to host the event. Hopefully I might be back next year. I'm sure it's going to be a bigger and better event with more members as well. Thanks everybody. Have a great Reconciliation Week. Thank you very much.